My name is Leo Oresta. I'm working at Quest in product management, and today we speak about tidy space and tidy mind. And I want to say some words about that, how we picked that title, because this is very funny actually. I was speaking to my colleague wife, and she said to me that basically he likes to cook, but when he cook, is a mess, and she get angry about him. And this is basically what happened in our case when we trying.
That's not true.
It is.
It's not true. It's the other way around. When she cooks,
No.
she's a mess, and I have to clean up. That was where this came from.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's not only in the family, by the way, actually it's in work, right? Because when you, and if you in the transition on this time that when you move into the cloud, some of the assets that you're currently monitoring, the management are actually happy and everything goes well and they are congrats you and they are just happy. It just happened. But it's bright, it's clean, and everyone happy, management, cost effective, everything is good. But are you really rich to the cloud? Because basically it looks something like that. It's a mess. The same kitchen in my colleague's house. It's a mess because you are not really rich to the cloud because you didn't thought about all the aspects of moving to the cloud. It's not just moving assets to the cloud, even on premise. And when you do that, you need to think about a lot of stuff. And then your management or your wife, it doesn't matter how you look on that, asking those questions. Why it looks like that? And it starts if we speak about the cloud, about the billing, about the decrease on performance, because what we thought or what we planned is actually not meet our requirement. It speaks about all the waste and the cost that we're currently spending. Pricing, we choose one subscription and we didn't consider all the aspects of that, and actually it's bad. And then we have lack of performance, we are lack of cost visibility. Beforehand, everything were on premise and it was on the ESX where we already paid money, or the organization paid this money to the ESX, and now when we move to the cloud, everything that we consume or our application is consumed is actually translated or tied to cost. So there are a lot of guesstimates when we do that. If we will move to the cloud, we'll see that subscription and it costs that, this and that. And this is very cheap. We must move to the cloud, but it's not really the truth. And of course, lack of knowledge. Once we do that, we have like a lot of things that we need to consider that we didn't consider before. I'm sorry. So, Michael wanted to say something about the goal of this presentation before we start. It was like,
So last night, Lior is in charge of my well-being and my sleeping habits. And can I say, last night that didn't happen. So I think it was 1 o'clock. We were still talking about this over a couple of beers. So he is not entirely accurate when he's saying this, in my personal experience.
no. No, the real thing actually, or the goal of this presentation is to define or provide the strategies, how we do that move to the cloud, what we need to consider when we do that, because it contains a lot of things that we need to consider, like resources, subscriptions, on-premise, moving to off-premise, provisioning that stuff. And of course, keep monitoring the databases and the VMs that currently in the cloud. And by the way, I was speaking to some customers early today and yesterday, and previously DBAs were focusing only on databases, and some of you are already DBAs only. But once you move to the cloud, it's tight. So we can't not see only the database or the queries that run in there. We need to also take a look on the VM and how much resources it consumes. And if we have a zombie VMs or a zombie resources, we need also to kill them out. We will see that in a second, or to remove this waste. So the agenda, we will speak about the challenges by managing this infrastructure and databases in the cloud. Of course, different providers, give us like headache because different providers has different configuration. We need to gain more knowledge about each one of the configuration. Yossi will speak about identifying the slowest queries around across all of these different providers. We'll speak about tracking and monitoring those assets in the cloud and on-premise, and overall allocated zombies and VMs. The last one is about provisioning, and that's the planning. If we will have, I mean, we will have time, but I'm not sure how deep I should go with that. It depends on the questions that we will have. All right. Not moving. Too fast. Okay. So when speaking about challenges in general, when we're thinking about moving to the cloud, one of the most important things is the economic storm or economic turmoil like in here, because this is the first challenge that actually our organization made, because we are cut on budget, we are cut on resources, we need to manage more, and we need to be cost effective. Now, this is very hard. And in order to do that, we need tools that will provide us the option to gain all these insights across the different providers and show cost-effective solutions. So the second one speaks about force reduction. We experienced that in my company. I believe you experienced that in your company. And basically, we need to do more with less resources, and less of knowledge. Now, this is very challenging because if before we manage our assets across the entire team, now we got like 2 guys instead of 5 need to do the same thing. And sometimes it's actually even getting higher because we are keeping monitoring all the other teams adding more and more databases and infrastructure assets that need to be monitored.
Yeah, Lior, just on that, I spoke with this yesterday. I'm not sure if anyone was there or not, but the idea of resilience and the people component of resilience. So if anyone's following Twitter and Musk and what's happening in Twitter, you know, the force reductions there. I found it really interesting. So the force redundancies there, and a week later, all these outages start spiking, and the realization that number one, the loss of knowledge, loss of know-how, but number two, the impact that has on the existing staff. And I think that's a really valid point here with your force reduction and the pressure that pushes on to the remaining team, right?
Right. And actually, it actually goes to the next item, which speaks about skills and expertise. So that's part of that. So once you have this list of knowledge and you need another to gain more skills and expertise on other domains. So today, if you're monitoring only SQL Server or SQL Server Oracle or Hyper-V, VMware, next the organization will want to be more cost effective by deploying Postgres, which is license free, right? Open source. And you need to gain that new knowledge. Now, there are tools at the market. One of them, of course, is Foglate, the one that we promote, but basically that gives you the same workflow, same UI, same directions. If you know one, you know to do that on the other one. And this is very important because as much as you gain more knowledge and you need to have upskills, you need to get, you can manage more actually with less. And this is actually what makes it cost effective. If we'll go further, the second one is about complexity. Now, complexity is another challenge that we are facing day to day. So if, like a couple of years ago, we were managing SQL servers and Oracles, and it might be DB2 and Sybase, today it's like Storm. We manage SQL Server, Oracle, Postgres, MySQL, Redis, Snowflake. And it's not ours, it's the organization that requires those open source licenses. They require more cost-effective ways to save money. And you need to manage all of these. And this complexity can be solved somehow, not everything. I mean, you all the time need to gain knowledge by using the right tools that can provide you, again, the same workflow under the same umbrella without the need to know every piece of or bit of that specific asset. It can be database, it can be VMware, it can be Hyper-V, it can be in the cloud like Azure, Google, and AWS. All of these are, if you sometimes if you go back and you see what you've done before and what you do today is much more, but with less resources and less knowledge, I have to admit. From a performance perspective, if before we were tuning statements just to make sure the application run faster and responsive, and if we had issues with that, then we could add actually more resources. We just call the IT and ask for more CPU or memory, sometimes storage, and then it runs faster. And it doesn't cost us money because it's on-premise and the organization or our company already paid for that ESX. Now, when we move to the cloud, everything is tight. If you're not tuning your statements, they consume more resources. Consuming more resources cost us money. So what we need to do basically, it's never-ending story, right? We need all the time to optimize. First, we need to identify those statements that can be optimized or candidate for optimization. And then we need to optimize them. And then we do that again tomorrow. And it's not only about performance, it's about consuming resources. Now, the simple example for that would be like a statement that you read in a books table, and then when you start with that and you optimize that, say we have 2,000 books in there, it's very quick, like that. And then, like when we are approaching the holidays, this book table going very big. It's the same statement, we just tuned that a couple of days ago, weeks ago, and today when we try to read it, we're using more CPU and memory, and because we're running in the cloud, we are paying more. So we could solve it by doing indexing, by partitioning the table, additional ways how to optimize, it's up to you, or tools that can help you with that. But basically, it's very important to make sure that we keep all the time optimizing those SQLs. Last one is the cost management. It's very important. It's tied to what I just discussed about performance, but there are two pieces of that. One of them related to performance that we just spoke. The second one is that when we're doing this move to the cloud, we are not thinking that much. I mean, we are not planning that much, or the organization didn't play that much. Even us, we are using VMs and then we forget that we use them. They live somewhere there. We're not using them anymore. Or we are dropping this VM or removing that VM, but we didn't release this disk. This costs money, a lot of money. Now, there are tools out there, again, not only Foglight, the tool that we promote, other tools in the market that actually identify those resources automatically. We will see that. And with one button, they just clean up all the zombies VM, all the zombies resources. And of course, you can also resize these VMs, which means you can use, or it will suggest you, there are a lot of tools that do that, suggest you to resize this VM instead of one subscription to the other, and then you also save money because it monitors the resources that this VM is actually consuming and suggests you to reduce that because you define that you need 8 CPUs and this and that memory. It's not used, so it's a waste of money. This is again going back to the performance thing. So a small improvements that we do to a statements and to our environment actually contribute to the amount of cost-effective way or the cost-effective actions that we run in order to save more money. As long as we keep doing that, we reduce or the spend on money in general or in the organization at all. There is a good example for that is that like a bus and an Uber ride, right? A bus, when you get to a bus, you pay 5 pennies, 10 pennies, doesn't matter, very small amount of money. But when when you take the ride with Uber or a taxi, you actually pay, I don't know, $10. So, but bus is still cost effective. And there are revenues when bus driver or bus companies. Why is that? That's because these small improvements or this small amount of money that they are doing, they actually contribute to the entire big picture, which is revenues. I will stop now for a second, not for a second, for a couple of minutes, and give Yossi the stage to speak about how we can identify those 6 SQL statements and improve performance, of course.
Hi, I'm Yossi. I'm a DBA at my base profession, and then I'm domain expert in Quest, defining and what to do, how to monitor databases. We will start speaking about, let's start with generic understanding the environment. One of the databases that we are monitoring is Azure SQL database. Azure SQL database is a database like, it's not like a SQL server on-prem, it's a single database. Managed instance in the cloud has a lot of databases, but this one is just one database that we can monitor. This database, when we are using this feature, we are getting some things from the environment. We are getting high availability, so you can, your data is always available between, you can put them in different regions. And you can also have a recovery of the file, of the database whenever to a specific time that you want. One of the good features and easy features, and it is correlate to what Leo said about money, so you can easily scale your database to be, maybe you need it to be faster, or you are not using it too much, so you can lower the resources that it is taking. You can also deploy your database in several options as a dedicated resource. So you can say that you want a specific amount of resources. It will be all the time the same resources. Or you can do it as something more flexible that can be changed by usage. The Azure database is it's basically used connected to a logical server. Logical server, it's you are getting just an IP of the database, and you have security for this environment. You are getting an option to manage multiple databases at once if you need. You can set regions, different regions for databases, deny logins or any firewall rules that you want to see, also to audit the connection to the database. And you can configure failover groups for this. All of the in this environment, you have for each data for the Azure, the server, the logical server, you have one system database, one master that holds all the information of the other databases. So you can have several of them, and you will have here the resource. You can see the resource of all databases, and that's all. It's not like a normal, like you can use it for day-to-day job. Something. Okay, so there are several purchase model for Azure DB. We have a DTU and a vCore. The DTU is like a blended number of the highest number of CPU data IO or log IO. It's like when you have this number of resources, this is what you can do. It means that maybe you will use the whole CPU, but you will not be have resources for IO and so on. So it's like a mix. Usually it is used for basic, very low databases that are not, they have not too much load for simple workloads. The vCore, it's like you can define the number of cores that you have. You can define how many resource cores you have, minimum and maximum, if you will use the provision, the serverless option. And you can also scale it whenever you want. As I said before, you can change the amount of CPUs. You can switch between them whenever you want. It is flexible. So again, from the cost point of view, there was born the elastic pool, something that was added. You have the several databases with shared resources together. So you can have several elastic pools in the server separated, and you can have also databases out of the elastic pool. In each one of them, you can configure the limitation there. So this is an example again from the cost point of view. If at the past we had, we could have a database that works only at daytime, and then it works, another one works in the nighttime. Each one of them has 5 cores. So the cost in this example is 1,000 for each, so we will pay 2,000. For this kind of scenarios, it is good to use, we can use the elastic pool. So we are just defining 5 cores. This is what we need in each point of time. And then it's like load balancer between the databases. Whenever you are using in the morning, you will not harm the second one, and the other way. So if we are looking for an architecture of how it looked like, this is the server, the logical server, and inside we are seeing 2 elastic pools. This one is DTU and the other one is core. And you can have some others that are mostly important. You don't want to lower their performance, maybe they are important. And the others, they can share from their point of usage. All the logical server has its own firewall. You can deny logins for the logical server. So as you see here in this example, you cannot mix between DTU and vCore in the same elastic pool currently. When we, in Quest, we started to monitor this framework, we decided to have alarms to the user whenever we are reaching the capacity of each one of the limitation. If it's for vCore, it will be the CPU and data and log. And for the DTU, it's just one number because it is combining the max of one of the others. So whenever we are reaching a threshold, we will get an alert and we will be able to think what to do from our point of view. Also a capacity limit or number of sessions. So these are things that we got from the database itself when it is reaching its limits. Or if we cannot, we don't have any access. This is how it looks in our Foglight. We are monitoring a lot of databases. My previous job was as an Oracle DBA. So I started there, and then I moved to Azure and MySQL, defining some monitoring for these jobs, for these databases. Here we can see alerts for each database, for each group of databases. But we can see it also in the level of the database itself. If we are seeing here warning, this is related to this one, but it will be also at the top as a summary. This page is of we're looking of the Elastic Pool tab, and we can see all the resource information that we got for this Elastic Pool. And we can see how many database on the right. You can see how many databases we have. So these are the Elastic Pool that we are monitoring. In each Elastic Pool, we have the option to see all its databases. This is when we are getting into the Elastic Pool, and we can see that we are monitoring, as I said before, the master database to know what is getting on in the Elastic Pool. So we have a list of databases. We can know already the resources, but we don't have any credential yet for those databases. For the second one, we don't have any credentials, but we know what is resources are consumed. This one we do monitor. If we will get into it, we will see some more information of the database, and we can do some more research for this database. And we have also alarms on the storage, as I said, on the right. If there will be alert, it will be in another color. We get a message, and we'll be able to fix it. And this is when we are getting into a database and we can see that there are performance issues. We have the Performance Investigator application module that with this tool we can look at all of the queries that in the database and what is the waiting time or the resource consumption across time. So we can look for the day before or 1 week before to see how it was spreaded, and we can focus on the interesting weight or problem that we have. And again, we have all the queries here. We can sort and drill down and see some more information about the plan or what we needed to do. This area is very useful for me, at least. We are looking for all the statements, and we can say, no, let's look by user. We can drill down to a user and see all its statement, and from the statement I can go from which client machine he did it or whatever. So we have some dimension that we can get into it and see from this point of view what is the problem. Anything to add? Okay. So this is when we know already which database we have problem, which we need to maybe to investigate. But if we have several databases, we have tens or more databases, and we will need to do it one by one. Maybe we'll get an alert. It will be mostly not on time after someone complains. But we want to be proactive. We want to manage all of those databases at once if we can, and we can. This is a screenshot from in our development phase. We are going to provide it soon, very soon. Like a top page, we call it Query Insight, that we can see all the statements from all of our databases, all of them. So it can be SQL Server, it can be Oracle, MongoDB, or whatever that we have on our site from the query point of view. How much the query impacted its database on the specific time. So we are gathering all this information from each database, and we are taking it to a special place, and then we can analyze it here and see what is the most thing that the DBA need to focus, because he has a lot of environments and systems, and this is the best place to go. In this page, you can filter by which impact you want to focus. If it's about 90% maybe, not to consume work on low priority queries. You can by elapsed time or execution. So because if it's one execution that is making a noise, maybe it is one time. But if it's something that it is constantly happening, we need to focus it. Here you can see in small how it was in the past. But when we were focusing, we can see it here, the elapsed time and the executions over the time. And we can always change in the upright the time frame. We have the SQL ID, and we can, the button investigate is the most important here, that we can focus to the previous page that we spoke about directly to the specific statement directly, and then we can start working on understanding what it is doing. We can do open it as SSMS. We can look in the query itself, the SQL text, full text, and to see what we can do. That's it. Yeah.
This page on. I just want to add some words about this page. So basically, if we spoke previously about the cost of statements and the need for analyzing and optimizing those statements, and since you're managing more and more different databases, or even one type of database, but a lot of them, like hundreds or tens, it doesn't matter how many, instead of trying to get, even with that tool that you saw previously, one by one, and try to find those statements that's actually most consuming in your environment, what we created here is actually a list of all the most consuming statements in the entire environment. It doesn't matter if it's hundreds or thousands of queries or databases. We monitor that all. We create that impact thing. This is the bar, blue bar that you see here. And impact, by the way, is the way for us to communicate with you. It's actually the active time for that specific statement compared to the entire instance. And then we have one language across the different domains. It can be SQL Server, Oracle, MySQL, Postgres, Snowflake, everything, DB2, Sybase, you name it. It will aggregate everything, analyze it, store it in a different location, and show it to here. Now, in addition to what Yossi says, we can start by that. This is like the candidates for optimization or starting saving money. These are which makes you more cost effective, because instead of drilling down to each one of those instances and spend time on that, with one click on the investigation, you are down there at the instance level to the statement, and you start your analysis there. So there is no need to go through any other different tools, one for Oracle, one for DB2, one for Sybase, or even if it's the Azure MySQL, it doesn't matter. We collect that information, we do that for you. The only thing that you need to do is just click on the investigate and start doing the investigation. This is a very powerful tool. It's coming like in 1 to 2 months. It should be released. All right. Let's speak about cost and billing. So when we speak about cost and billing, there are a couple of tools. I spoke about that earlier, but there are a couple of tools that can help us to identify zombie VMs, zombie resources, and of course resizing, and give us like tips how or where we need to do that. This is like a partial page of one of our dashboard of one of our tools, which is the Foglight. It's the same thing. So under the same umbrella, you can actually identify those zombie VMs or resizing and unused resources. It shows you also how much money you can save by just hitting one button and fix that. If we go about prediction, this is another thing, not prediction, I'm sorry, performance. So performance, Yossi already spoke of that. This is very important to keep analyzing and optimizing and looking for performance, potential performance statements or candidates for us to optimize, because it will save us money once we move to the cloud or we're already there, and then we need to keep doing that. Now, for monitoring perspective, not only history matters, right? Something all the time happening right now. Sometimes it's someone that deployed as a new Kubernetes that runs an application, and now, from some reason, cost getting very high. And when I mean cost, and now from now on, we will speak about cost, it's actually performance. So costs get very high. It means this new application requires more resources, or this statement requires more resources. It's not optimized. It's a developer. It's not DBA anymore. They are working with Kubernetes. They are deploying like hell, and they're creating like a lot of Kubernetes, and it becomes like crazy. Now, with that said, we also need to make sure that we understand and know what is the current cost or waste. It depends how you look on that, and how it predicts what will be the future, the next couple of months. Is that going to be very high? Is it steady? And you can plan that, and you can see that with the same tool that we just spoke, and you can see if you need to do some work because it's going to be very high. There is statements, or there are resources at the infrastructure level that consumes more data, which means it's tied to cost, and then it will impact our cost. Multi-cloud monitoring or hybrid monitoring, you name it, we or you need to make sure that you're able to monitor almost every database on-premise and off-premise. It's your responsibility to monitor them. It's your responsibility to make them cost-effective, or optimize them and have a good performance. And in addition to that, and that based on some discussions with us, just added that yesterday, because I had some discussions with some DBAs, and actually they said to me that basically they are now also responsible for those VMs once they move to the cloud. So you need to make sure that you have all the information that you need in order to take those actions to be cost effective. Yeah, this one I really like. You want to say something?
I do.
They can't hear you.
Hopefully someone can hear me. Yeah, great. So can I just say before we jump into this, that this isn't quite Pixar, okay? It speaks to what Lior's been talking about there, and housekeeping as well, right? So trying to keep things, all these extra pressures, and trying to keep things nice and tidy, organized, and so we can offer a productive service. Okay, so bear with me while I do this. No audio. That's a shame. Yeah, okay. So the whole idea was when you're in Azure, you have all these VMs, and perhaps you don't know who's running or what's using them. And we have this tool with Foglight. It collects those VMs based on a couple of signals, in terms of usage, or it's been inactive for XY for so long. And what's useful is, one click of a button, you can collect all your potential VM targets and kill the service. And then perhaps wait for someone to call and say, why isn't my VM working anymore? But that saves you money right there very, very quickly. So that's my Pixar clip.
All right, just go through the next one. It's the same without this video that will disturb us. So basically, there are a couple of these. So what are zombie VMs? Zombie VMs are basically a waste of valuable storage, CPU, network, and of course disk. They cost for our management before they cost us. This is what they see. They're not seeing that like that. They have their own reporting, and they get that number. When they speak with you, they say, we are wasting a lot of money. We're spending a lot of money on this cloud that everyone told us this is actually, it will be cost effective. So of course we need to do some maintenance on that. And as my colleague Mike just said, there are tools out there, and the tool that you saw is the Foglight tool, which again is not monitoring only database and doing all the optimization or help you with the optimization. It's also doing that. It monitors the zombie VMs. It can be, there are a lot of ways how we track zombie VMs. And based on that, we suggest you just to remove them from the list. And we also show you how much money you can save by doing that. And we do the same thing also for the resources. So resources can be disks, CPU, network cards, everything that you can think about, especially when you're working with Kubernetes or your teams are working with Kubernetes and they are removing and adding and basically more adding Kubernetes and applications, and then they just forget that it's there. And then we track that and also suggest you to remove that or those resources that actually are unused, are not tied or connected to any VM anymore. In addition to that, as I mentioned at the beginning, it speaks about the resizing of VMs. So VMs, when you start your planning or when you're defining those VMs and you pick the right region, you think so, and the right subscription, it ends up that your definition was like, I need 4 cores and I need this and that memory. And by the end of the day, this VM actually require less. Or if you optimize it, the databases or the queries they're running on this VM, you actually require less. And by saying require less, it means you need to click again a button to remove this subscription or to change this subscription to something less consuming, which are, let's say, 2 cores, or instead of 16 cores, 8 cores. And by that, you are actually becoming more cost effective, saving more money to your organization and for you. In summary, challenges, especially when do that transition, and it takes time. I know not everyone moving to the cloud now are already there. It's a long journey, but when it starts, there are a lot of challenges. And again, it's not about only the cost, it's about everything. Optimization, performance, cost, organizing all of that, keep that tidy thing. His wife in the kitchen, this is exactly that. This is your management. My wife is my manager. And if you want to keep the good relationship, you have to do these tidy things. You need to get holistic view and details about billing, cost, and performance, by the way. You need to track it. Once you do this move to the cloud, it's not the on-premise thing anymore because it's tied to cost. You need to track it every day. Or you need to have tools that notify you and do this work for you, but helps you to become more effective and have a great relationship with your partner. And this is what it says here. Last one is like every other, I believe, presentation that you saw or got. You need to define standards and processes because, again, moving to the cloud, it's a different thing. Doing that transition requires you to define a new processes and a new standards, how I do, how my day work looking like. It's completely different. Because now you need to deal with cost again. And cost is everything, for your managers especially. And once you do that, how it will look like, I just created that one for you. If we had like a mess at the beginning, it will start getting better and getting much more tidy, much more organized. Everything, you know everything, you're on top of everything. And it will require some time to do that, but these standards and these processes that you will define will help you to be like that. Thank you.